We have waited almost a year, but The Mandalorian is back. Season 2 has begun on Disney Plus. Episode 9 or Chapter 9, The Marshal. Bro, wow. I have so much to say here. First of all, The Mandalorian continues to be the best thing in Disney modern Star Wars. The best. Look, Clone Wars Season 6, Season 7, that was great. I still enjoy Force Awakens. There are comics and things like that I kind of like, but nothing can touch on The Mandalorian. This is my favorite piece of Star Wars that we've seen since the original trilogy, in my opinion. Revenge of the Sith is close, it's the best prequel, but to me, and of course the Clone Wars TV show was great and Rebels was fun, but no. Mandalorian makes me feel things. Just the way that it's literally like a movie, but a TV show, and it's so good. Okay, so this episode, the plot of this episode, first of all, as far as time skips go, there does not appear to be a major one. This episode picks up right where the last season left off, where it's Mando and the child, and in this episode, he's trying to find this Mandalorian armor. Now, the first major scene in this episode has Mando going to a coliseum, and it's like a big sort of tribute to pro wrestling. It's like intergalactic pro wrestling. There were dives, there were table bumps. I'm over here like, wow, like this is like a love fest of pro wrestling. Then the actual plot begins when we go to the actual plot. Mando has to go to Tatooine because he's heard there's a Mandalorian there. And he goes to Tatooine, and he meets his character named the Marshal. He goes there, we go back to Tatooine. He meets this guy named the Marshal who has a very familiar looking piece of armor. Very familiar. I have a big smile on my face. We have been hearing rumors about this for months. There's been all kinds of rumors and leaks about this for months. And bro, oh my goodness, it's coming. Okay, so let me get to it. So what happens is he goes to Tatooine, and this guy, the Marshal, has this armor, and they're about to fight for it. But what happens is that the town has been terrorized by this giant monster, this big, like, dragon thing. And not only are the villagers also kind of dealing with this thing, but so are the Sand People, the Tusken Raiders. So Mando makes a deal with the Marshal, says, okay, if you can kill this dragon thing, kill this monster before it kills us, I'll give you the armor. And of course, Mando could just kill him right there on the spot, but he goes, you know what, fine, we'll do that. So they go out and meet up with the Sand People, the Tusken Raiders, and they're out there and they try to kill this thing, but it's a little bit too smart and a little bit too big. It's a giant freaking monster, and I gotta say, the effects on this looked great. It did not look fake. It looked very authentic. It looked very, very authentic. I really enjoyed the way this monster looked. I still think that some of the monsters in the old trilogy maybe were a little bit more realistic because they were puppets, but this still worked out for me. So what ends up happening is, they end up having a deal where they have to use the villagers to, it's so funny. First of all, the writing in the episode, the dialogue is incredible. Just the fact that Mando goes up to this guy early in the episode, he's like, I'll take it from you, hand it over. Just real alpha shit, yo. The Mandalorian is truly the most badass character in modern Star Wars, yo. Like, as much as I love Kylo Ren and such characters like that, I think that Mando is just leagues above any other character as far as being an alpha, just a real freaking tough guy. So Mando says, I volunteered your village. So they bring the villagers along, the human villagers. They convince him to come because they have to work together with the Sand People. And there is like a prejudice there. There's a little bit of subtext there about there being a prejudice because the Sand People are, raiders and whatnot. And speaking of which, one of the cool things about this episode I really liked, before we go back to the whole monster thing, is there was some extra lore that was given to us that I had not known about. So we find out that when the Empire fell and the Death Star blew up, it wasn't just peace all throughout the galaxy. Now, we knew this, but what we didn't know for sure is kind of more details as we got here in this episode on Tatooine specifically, because what happens is, and I know Tatooine's not the only planet that it happened on, because, the Outer Rim territories are kind of like, anything can happen, right? Is that after the Empire fell, it wasn't just that everybody was in peace, it was democracy. Some systems had to deal with insurrections, and they had to deal with bandits and other sort of small syndicates coming in and taking over and trying to assume control when the Empire fell. So that was a great piece of lore that we got in this episode. Now, back to the matter at hand. They go and they try to fight this big monster thing, this dragon, and they set up this cool little idea where they had these explosives in the ground. First of all, This dragon thing had to have been inspired by Tremors. If you've ever seen the movie Tremors, I was like, wow, this is like Tremors, you know? So they have these like bombs underground, and then when the monster comes out, the bombs blow up. And the idea was that they had to get the belly over the monster's belly over the correct part in the ground in order for it to blow up. So everyone's working together, and they do get to blow it up, but not entirely. So then Mando does this alpha thing where he ties a bunch of like explosives. Well, I don't know if he ties them, but there's like a bunch of like looks like big thermal detonators. I really couldn't tell, to this bantha. And by the way, the first scene in the episode where the monster eats the bantha is freaking crazy. That was freaking crazy. It's just so awesome. And the costumes were great. Just, you know, it also kind of humanized the Sand People, you know, because they're not all just pure evil. You know, they are marauders, but they're not just pure evil. You know what I mean? So, anyways, so the ending of this is so amazing. So they don't blow up the thing. So the Marshal and Mando go fight it, and Mando does this thing where he basically like has the monster eat the bantha with the explosives, then rockets out of his mouth and blows it up and lands, and then the monster's carcass is behind him on some like freaking badass. This was so badass, bro. This was so freaking badass. I'm just watching this like, wow. And then they shake hands. Mando gets the armor, and as Mando is leaving on a speeder, we see a figure. In Tatooine. He turns around, and it's Temuera Morrison, a.k.a. the actor who played Jango Fett. And that means that is indeed Boba Fett. Boba Fett has returned to Star Wars after how many years of fans wanting to see Boba Fett return. We saw, you know, the Mandalorian TV show was pretty much made because of the popularity of Boba Fett. The entire Mandalorian lore came from the popularity of Boba Fett in the original trilogy. That's why they even expanded that out. And we actually see Boba Fett. See, now we know where the armor, Marshal's armor, came from. He got it from Jawas, probably from the Sarlacc that at some point Boba Fett escaped. So Boba Fett is alive, and the way he turns around and it just fades out was unbelievable. What an episode. It's the right kind of fan service. It's the right moves. Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, they know what they're doing. I cannot question them whatsoever. This was some of the best modern Star Wars ever. As crazy as it may sound, if you couple The Mandalorian with the Clone Wars Season 7, the movies, even though I love Force Awakens, the movies just can't touch it. Just the storytelling, the way they do things, the way they do stuff for the fans, but don't just give them senseless fan service. You know, it actually means something. Having Boba Fett come back in this context where he doesn't even have his armor anymore, but it's him, I don't even know what to expect from this season of Mandalorian, but wow. And we haven't even gotten to Jedi yet. There's probably, oh my goodness. I have not been more excited for a new piece of Star Wars since the Force Awakens era. And here we go. Mandalorian Chapter 9 was freaking awesome. Continues to be well directed, well shot, well acted, incredible script. Thumbs up. Watch it if you haven't. We're going to have a good time this season.